Okay, right now it's time in 9:05. Uh, Tonight we have a very well-known visitor, Todd Ponsky. I'd like to introduce him briefly. Most of you well know him. He is right now currently a professor of surgery at the University of Cincinnati, and he is the director of clinical growth and transformation at Cincinnati Children's Hospital Medical Center. Um, as you know, most of you know, he is the one, he's interested in minimally invasive surgery. As far as I know, he is the first to perform and report single port surgery in children and modernized the methods of laparoscopic pediatric hernia repair. His academic background is very well known, and right now he is the vice president of IPEC, International Pediatric Endosurgery Group, and also he's chairing the American College of Surgeons Committee on Telemonitoring. And before everyone else, he thinks and sees that this online teaching is coming. He founded Global Cast MD and StateCurrent in surgery, and both of which serve to modernize the way we teach and learn surgery. So everybody is looking forward to hear what Todd's going to say. So I'll stop here and give him the word. And Todd, please go ahead. Everybody's listening there.
All right. Thank you, Aiden. This is so much fun. I'm looking here and seeing all my friends here. This is exciting to see all of you. Without traveling, I wish I could be there in person. But let's say, hey, Munther, you look great. All right. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll jump right into it. This is probably going to take about a half an hour, maybe 25 to 35 minutes. We'll see. All right. You see okay? Okay. So what I want to talk about is how academic medicine is going to have a very different look and feel, I think, in the future. And a lot of you, my friends on here, have been hearing me preach about this for a while, that I think the way we teach medicine once you're in practice is a bit broken, and we could be better about it. We could teach better. And I want to give some insight into where I think the future is headed. So we've seen in the last 10 years something we've never seen before. And that is that very well-established industries have been shut down overnight. I mean, this has happened, used to take 10 years for an industry to go away. But now one cool innovation and the entire industry is shut down. And one of the most disrupted industries has been the publishing industry. So this is magazine sales in the UK. This is the newspaper industry. And you can see what happened is when Google came, it completely shut down newspaper sales. So if newspapers and magazines have been disrupted, why do we think that it won't happen in our field? And I think that medical publishing will be disrupted the same way that magazines and newspapers have. I'll just tell you it as it is. I think the publishing mechanism is completely broken. It's inefficient. There's way too much out there. It doesn't make sense right now, and everything needs to be revamped because we don't know what to pay attention to. And I've been saying for about 5 or 6 years now, maybe more, that societies, journals, and textbooks will go away. This was a talk from about 5 or 6 years ago. And I still say that textbooks, societies, and journals will not be around as the primary source of information in about 5 to 10 years from now. I think they will all look very, very differently. I've never expected COVID to happen, but now we're seeing a very rapid pace of what I think is going to happen, but we saw it in a matter of 3 months. And I think this will continue on and continue even more so. So let's talk about journals. There's been an exponential growth of journal articles. 2.5 million scientific publications per year in 2017. A lot of this is because the journals went digital. So there's no limitation of printing. So they can just publish everything. So anything you want will eventually get published somewhere. And now you get it all on PubMed or wherever database, so it's all equal. So a bad publication, a good publication, they all look exactly the same. So we don't know what to pay attention to because anyone can publish anything. There's also the open access journals, which have caused a massive explosion in publications as well. So now, when someone publishes a critical article that is very important that you must read because it's game-changing, you won't know about it because it is camouflaged by everything else that's been published. So now it's impossible to know what to pay attention to. This is publications, the graph, a curve of what publications have looked like. It's exponential. That has that growth curve where it goes like this and then shoots straight up. So if you were to look at in 1950, how long it would take for the total amount of publications to double, they would tell you at the current rate, it will take 50 years for the amount of medical knowledge to double. But they had to reevaluate in 1980 because what happened was the publications were faster than they thought. And in 1980, they said, no, actually, in 7 years, the total amount of medical knowledge will be doubling every 7 years. In 2010, it reduced to 3.5 years. So every 3.5 years, the medical knowledge will double. Now it's 70 days. So every 73 days, the amount of information that as doctors we're supposed to know doubles every 73 days. So it is impossible. It is impossible to keep up to date now. It's very different than our predecessors who lived in that generation where it was a flat curve. This is us now. So we talk about exponential growth and you say it's a lot, but let's talk about it in terms of something we can conceptualize. This is a story that many of you have heard me tell, and I'll tell it again. Once upon a time, a man invents the chessboard and he takes it to the king of India and he shows him the game, and the king says, "This is amazing. What can I give you to repay you for such an incredible game?" And he goes, "Well, let's play a game. I want you to pay me in rice, but I want you to play a game. I want you to put 1 grain of rice on the first square and then double, then 2, then 4, then 8, and I'll take the rice home to my family as my payment." So the king says, "No problem, 1, 2, 4. And he realizes when he gets to the second row, it's becoming a problem, that a doubling each square becomes a lot of rice. And then the entire room they're sitting in fills with rice. The whole palace fills with rice. And the whole country of India fills with rice, 3 feet deep. This is exponential, and this is what's happening to the growth of medical knowledge. It is exponentially growing. 18 quintillion pieces of rice. So this is the question. Now that we have this upswing, how do we get it in here? How can we be smart and keep up to date? Because the current system is broken, it doesn't work. There's no way that anyone on this Zoom meeting knows the same information. We all read different articles now. We all know different information. That's a new problem. This was not here 30 years ago. So how do we do this? So here's my dream. My dream is like the movie Matrix, is that you wake up in the morning and we load pediatric surgery in our brain in the morning. And when you're done, it goes, you know pediatric surgery. By the way, this is not that crazy because, because Elon Musk is actually working on something called Neural Lace that allows you to upload your thoughts to the web and allows you to download thoughts. So actually, that is something that someone is working on. But here's a book that I would recommend called Harnessing Our Digital Future. And they talk about, in this book, Andrew McAfee talks about 3 things. 3 things that will have the biggest impact in digital life. And we're going to hit all 3 of these. So number 1 is machine. What do I mean by a machine? By the way, if you hold your phone up to any of these QR codes, you should be able to get the link to the book. So machine. What I mean is machine learning or artificial intelligence. What is machine learning? Well, it used to be that you program computers like this. If the user does this, then the computer should do this. And so you have to program everything. Every possible thing that the user would do, you program in the computer. Artificial intelligence says, no, all we're going to do is teach the computer how to learn on its own through trial and error. It's the same way the human brain works with neurons. And so what happens is through trial and error, the computer gets smart and intelligent. So one of the biggest uses of artificial intelligence is something called natural language processing. This means that the computer can be trained through trial and error on its own by letting it read. It learns to understand the language. And it can learn to understand us, just like Siri, just like Alexa, it can understand us. This is an example of what Google has built called Google Duplex, which is an example of the future of natural language processing. And I will tell you that this is going to have a big impact in healthcare.
So what you're going to hear is the Google Assistant actually calling a real salon to schedule the appointment for you. Let's listen.
How can I help you? Hi, I'm calling to book a woman's haircut for a client. I'm looking for something on May 3rd. Sure, give me 1 second. Sure, what time are you looking for around? At 12 p.m. We do not have a 12 p.m. available. The closest we have to that is a 1:15. Do you have anything between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m.? Depending on what service she would like. What service is she looking for? Just a woman's haircut for now. Okay, we have a 10 o'clock. 10 a.m. is fine. Okay, what's her first name? The first name is Lisa. Okay, perfect. So I will see Lisa at 10 o'clock on May 3rd. Okay, great. Thanks. Great. Have a great day. Bye.
Now, what's amazing is the way that works is all you do on your phone is say, I want to schedule a haircut appointment. That all happens behind the scenes. You don't even know about it. The call is made and it's all done by natural language processing. So the idea is, can we use natural language processing to solve this problem, to have it read the articles and determine what's good? So it filters for us and determines that this other stuff is noise and this is the article we should be paying attention to. So we tried to see if we could teach artificial intelligence to determine a good abstract or a good paper. This is obviously a very, very early pilot study, but we took all of the APSA abstracts and we ran it through natural language processing and compared it to the editorial board to see if we could predict which ones were accepted or rejected. So we had 85% negative predictive value. That means that our artificial intelligence machine was able to predict 85% of the time if an article was going to be rejected by the editorial board. That's only 1 year's worth of abstracts. Our plan now is to do 10 years of abstracts, and we think we'll get upwards of 95%. It leaves a big ethical question. How would you feel if the machine rejected your abstract? It's a very interesting question. All right, so this is normally when I would poll the audience, so I won't hear your answers, but you can think to yourself. If you've seen this show, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? You get asked a question, and if you don't know the answer, you can choose a lifeline. There's 3 choices. One is you can have them narrow the choices down by half. So then instead of 4 choices, there's 2. The other thing is called phone a friend, where you call the smartest, most expert person you know in the whole world, and you ask them the answer. Or you just ask the audience. So I would ask the audience here which they would choose. So you have it in your head. You can write it in the chat if you want. I won't see it, but that's okay. So here's the answer. If you choose 50-50, your odds are 50-50. 50-50 chance that you'll get it right. If you call the expert, your chance of getting it right is 66%. If you ask the uninformed audience who are not experts at all, your answer will be right 91% of the time. The big point here is, this is point number 2 from Andrew McAfee's book, the crowd. The crowd has been underutilized. We rely on the very famous older crowd to determine what we should be reading. But in fact, maybe that's not the right way. Maybe we should be asking everybody what we should be reading. Instead of an editorial board of 15 people, maybe it's an editorial board of 15,000 people. That's the idea of the crowd. This is a story of Francis Galton, who took an ox to the state fair. He asked 800 people how much it weighed. Took all the numbers and he averaged them out, and the crowd guessed 1,197, and the ox actually weighed 1,198. Over and over, time and time again, the crowd has been shown to be more accurate than the experts. The experts do not know as much as the crowd, and we underutilize them in medicine. This is what YouTube does to determine what's a good video. The best ones rise to the top based on the crowd. So can this work in medical publishing? And the answer is yes. The Social Science Research Network actually stopped publishing. They put all their stuff on this website and let the crowd determine what goes to the top. It's peer review editorial board. And that's how they determine what's a good paper. So I predict that instead of scientists sending their paper to a journal that charges that they get it for free from you write an article, you do your science, you give it for free to the journal, and then they sell it to some other people. I say we aren't going to need the publishing companies. We're going to do our science and let artificial intelligence and the crowd determine what's important to read. And this will make it free, and will make it edited, curated, and filtered, and it will be a much faster way of getting content around the world. So this is a brief video of version 1.0 of our method of trying to do this, is that we created an app called StateCurrent that maybe many of you have seen, and it was designed to allow people to choose their publications that they wanted, using crowdsourcing to determine what you see instead of an editorial board. And then we put it in multimedia form, so it would be in a video or an audio. And we had surgical videos and treatment guidelines, and allows you to communicate with doctors all over the world, and you can get credit, and it was free. So this is a brief video demonstrating the version 1.0 Mastery StateCurrent app.
Able to stabilize and actually correct.
Last year we published in Science Translational Medicine.
What do you do with a 100-day-old infant that presents? It's a very familiar question, to be honest.
The only thing that's attaching the lesion, and so the assumption is that there's a vessel in there somewhere.
So that was version 1.0, which was designed for practicing surgeons. So that's, we're going to get to 2.0 later. So that we have journals, and we talked about machine learning, and we talked about the crowd. I want to talk about the second thing is conferences. So we have journals, now conferences. We've already seen like what we're doing now, it's virtual. I always predicted that the conference situation would not be sustainable in its current form of people traveling all over the world. We had to embrace online. But the problem is, I was telling Aiden ahead of time, I think taking web and seminar together and making a webinar isn't necessarily going to be the future. It's where we are now, but I don't think it's where we're going to be. I think we're going to have a much better solution of coming together than just the way we're doing it now. I think that it can be boring. Some of these, if you're watching too long and they go on and on, it's not exciting to watch. Probably half of you are falling asleep right now. So what I think is we need to pay attention to what Henry Ford said. So Henry Ford, who helped popularize the automobile, said that if he asked people, how can we be smart? Let's innovate. How can we get people from point A to point B faster? Most people would have said, make the horses faster, because they can't think about the car. And a lot of us are just making the horses faster because we're saying, okay, well, we know physical conferences, all we have to do is take the same thing and put it on a screen and broadcast it. That's what we know. That's just a faster horse. That's not the true innovation of how we really can reach people and really get information out there. And we don't have it all figured out yet, but I somehow think that just taking a lecture that we give at a conference and broadcasting it probably won't be the ultimate answer. So here's the point. The future of advanced medical education isn't just to take it and digitize it. It's an entire reframe. Take away everything you know, erase your brain, and say, how can we best educate the world using digital technology? We have to not only understand the technology, but what we also have to understand are behaviors and how the behaviors change. And I'm going to give you 3 examples of how behaviors change. Number 1, first of all, we have to stop going to this concept of once a year conference. It needs to be all year. Forget the conference, just like you guys are doing. This is amazing. This is what I'm talking about. You're doing these weekly conferences, not once a year meeting. We also have to understand who goes to these. You have students, trainees, young doctors, senior doctors, all have different reasons for going. So what we want to create is what's called the digital learning experience. Live events, that's what this is. It's a live event mixed in with social environments, having a curriculum, having mastery training, and then having a way of letting people know when a critically important article comes out. All of these need to be combined together, and this is what society should be doing. All of these things. So we did this for APSA. We made the live event. This is what it looks like, where you would be able to theoretically, in the new one coming up, you could choose which you wanted to go into, which lecture, and you open the door and you can choose that particular lecture. That's the future of the live event, but that's only a tiny part of it. That's not the whole thing. We have to do more. And so right now we're working on gaming. Can we add social environments? You can see the man here is naked because I haven't finished designing it yet. This is still the prototype. We haven't given him clothes yet. But you can see the idea that everyone would be walking around and you can see and interact with each other. Probably will be 10 times better in a few years from now. So the last thing is platform. And this is the third thing. So machine learning, crowdsourcing, and platform. Platform is how we deliver the content. And this is when we're going to get into those behaviors in a second. The current platform we use to teach fundamentals of pediatric surgery are textbooks. And I was asking Aiden ahead of time, I don't know how it is in every region of the world, but our textbooks here in the United States, by definition, are old by the time they're published. They're 10 years old. And then if they're getting translated, they're even older. So I don't think textbooks are going to last. They're not updated. So we have to look at the 3 behaviors, not just the digitization, but what are the behaviors that have changed? Number 1, less time to read. Why do we have less time to read? When I was a child, my dad would come home, he's a physician, and he would go into his office, shut the door, and he would read. Family values have changed now. I can't go and shut myself in a closet for 3 hours at home. So I want to be with my family. So what do? I resort to what's called multitask learning. The new behavior now that wasn't here 30 years ago is that surgeons want to learn while they're doing something else because we want to be with our family. So I want to learn while I'm driving. I want to learn while I'm working out. I want to be able to multitask learn rather than locking myself and reading a textbook. And finally, multimedia learning. If I want to fix my car, I don't read the manual, I watch YouTube. So less time to read, multitask learning, and learning with things other than written text. by audio, by video, things that are richer in media. So if we take textbooks and we combine it with Audible, which is the audio version of textbooks, and YouTube, which is video, and Blinkist. Now, Blinkist is a great app, if you've never heard of it, where they take all the books and they summarize them in 15 minutes. So it's a Cliff Notes. It's a summary version of books. So if we can take a summary, YouTube, and Audible, and combine them with textbooks, we probably will have what could be the new modern era of learning. So this is an app 2.0 that we're working on, and this is going to be for the fundamentals of pediatric surgery. It's going to allow for multitask learning. You can choose to listen, watch, or read, and it's going to have short versions or long versions depending on what you want to listen, watch, or read. So here's a quick video of what this looks like. This is still just the in development. The new StateCurrent Learning app is a multimedia companion for the fundamental topics in clinical medicine. Content is available in either short 15-minute summaries or full-length in-depth reviews, and are available in audio, video, or text formats, and in multiple languages. The swipeable section at the top are the user's favorite saved clips for quick and easy access when needed. This is also the section where highlighted relevant content is pushed out to the user. The next section is the content that the user is currently learning. Here they're studying pyloric stenosis. They can swipe between all recent relevant content related to pyloric stenosis, such as a full-length podcast, a 15-minute summary video, and even technique videos. The content clips that this user is accessing come from multimedia playlists or textbooks. For example, this user is currently using the Pediatric Surgery course that's published by StateCurrent. This is a full comprehensive curriculum that covers all chapters of pediatric surgery in multimedia format. But this is open access, so anyone can publish a playlist or a textbook, including medical societies, and publishing companies can have companions to their textbooks here as well. When you click on the playlist or textbook, you can see all the chapters. Now this is where it really gets cool. When you click on a chapter, there are many options available to accommodate any learning style. For example, you'll see at the top that the user can choose to watch a video if they happen to be working out, listen to audio only if they happen to be driving, or choose closed caption if they're in a quiet area and don't want any sound playing. When watching a video or listening to an audio chapter, the user can choose to find exactly what they're looking for, with time stops throughout every piece of content. Also, every audio-video chapter has associated text, so the user can choose to read if they wish. When a user chooses an educational topic, all of the related content is grouped together in modules, so the user can choose to watch brief video chapter summaries, listen to full-length in-depth podcasts, or even view associated technique videos, guideline video summaries, or 30-second video summaries of the latest relevant articles. While some users may want to use this app to follow a curriculum from beginning to end, others may just want to search for a given topic. When you enter into the search screen, you can choose to go into any subset of the app, such as technique videos, guideline videos, or curriculums, or just type in a topic and it will return all the relevant content. Here the user searched Wilms tumor and chose to view the 15-minute overview video summary. The library button allows the user to create their own curated list of content. When you enter into the library, you can look at content you've already viewed, content you've saved to play in the future, or access other people's playlists. These can be friends of yours, society playlists, or even textbook playlists. Here the user chose to look at a playlist of one of their friends named Ray. The quiz section will deliver up quiz questions that are related to the content you're currently viewing. These are quiz questions created by either the StateCurrent team or created by other users. If you want to challenge your friends, you can even send them a quiz question through any messaging app. After you take a quiz question, you can choose to learn more, which will connect you to the relevant content in the app. So that's a brief overview of the of the new learning app that we're hoping to have. When you select a language, it would have it in this multiple different languages as well. So finally, what does video education look like? It depends on who you're teaching. Here's a brief video that shows some samples of ways that we've used video to teach. I think the future is going to be video storytelling instead of textbook chapters. It's telling it through video. So in summary, the future of advanced medical education is not simply just digitizing it. It's a complete reframe that not only utilizes modern technology, but understands and embraces modern learning behaviors as well. Thank you very much.
We thank you very much, Todd. This was a fantastic talk. I'm sure everybody is, somebody is going to ask questions. So in this participants section, you can be able to raise hands. So I will let them unmute them, and they will be able to ask questions. Or if you'd like to prefer writing your questions from the chat section, you can be able to write there. Let me ask the first question, Todd. What do you think about this telementoring?
So yeah, this is something I'm very interested in. Especially now, we've upped our telementoring. So the idea here is that one surgeon would just have a laptop or an iPad, while the other surgeon would have two monitors in the operating room, the one they're operating with, and one next to it that has the expert guiding them. We've been using this so far in our hospital. We've done about 30 cases of telementoring. When I first started off, when I left Steve Rothenberg, he telementored me for several cases, which was really helpful for me. So we can go into that with the specific questions. It used to be very expensive. It's getting more affordable. In the United States, there's a lot of issues with it, such as medical legal. If the surgeon makes a mistake, is the expert responsible? There's technology questions there's affordability questions, there's the business model. My hospital is not going to be excited about me spending 3 days a week teaching someone else instead of being in the operating room. So there's a lot of issues with it. We're trying to figure out that model.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Arshad would like to ask a question. Go ahead, Dr. Arshad.
Yeah, hi, Todd. It's very nice presentation and nice to see you again.
Me too.
This time we couldn't meet you in person in the conference. My question is that one is learning and the other part is assessing. And like if we are training somebody, and how we're going to change the assessment.
So let me answer that a couple of ways. So yesterday we were approached by one of the organizations when we talked about building this curriculum. Number one is, should they be allowed to watch to make sure that people, now that it's digital, they can actually see that someone watched it? So is that okay to make sure that someone watched the content? Number two, you have to give questions throughout it to make sure that they're actually doing the reading or the watching or the listening, but that they comprehended it and they answered the questions correctly. We trialed that with our residents and they were all copying each other's answers. So the second form is going to be switching the order of the answers. I will tell you there's a lot of controversy going on in the States with the American Board of Surgery, because a lot of people feel that the methods of assessment are broken. that we use the wrong criteria to evaluate that someone is qualified. So there's two things. One is evaluating for comprehension, and two is evaluating if they are good enough to move on. And those are two separate questions. One, we can definitely tell if they've consumed the content. Two, we can give them quiz questions. How to use those to make a decision is still to be decided. Does that answer your question? Not really? You're still, you're muted again, but I don't know if that's what you meant.
Because I think the situation why I'm asking is because we are in trouble now to take a clinical examination in pediatric surgery in Pakistan. And we're thinking that how to change it, that we can do like the O-level and A-level exams have not been taken and they all have been promoted without examination. And so how can we do in medicine that when we have to assess the skills and everything?
Yeah. So this, like I said, so this is quite controversial right now. We were asked, I don't remember who, several people have emailed me to connect them to the American Board of Surgery, the American Board of Pediatric Surgery, so that they could help get the same thing started in their country. And there was controversy because a lot of the trainees in our country feel that it's a very unfair assessment tool. So I think you need to start somewhere, and I'm not an expert in assessment. I'll start by saying that. There's the American Board of Pediatric Surgery is much more qualified, but there's a lot of controversy about, we do need a way to assess, but sometimes those are unfair assessment tools, and the wrong people who are very bright and very good surgeons don't do as well as people who just may be better at taking the test. So we're still trying to figure out how best to use those assessment tools.
Thank you. Thank you.
By the way, I do think we should have technique assessment. And that's why we have telementoring, but I think we should also have teleproctoring, where you have to do a few cases and have be evaluated and make sure you know the basic skills of how to be a safe surgeon.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you very much, Todd. Are there any more questions? I'm looking at the audience. Munter. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Hello, Munter.
Hello, everybody. Very interesting, and always looking forward to hear your talks about the advances in digitalization and education. One of my questions, I'll ask you a couple of questions, is do we need medical schools anymore?
Do we need what? Schools?
Medical schools, yeah.
Medical schools. So with COVID, the industry that's suffering huge are the universities.
Yes.
Yes. So I will tell you, Munther, a lot of us have had a lot of discussions that the only schools that will survive this are the ones that have pivoted to recreate their value, because their traditional value is no longer the same. Right now, our schools are not going to probably be open in the fall. I'm not limited now to a physical school. I can look anywhere, and what I value is not what it was before. Now I'm valuing a very different thing. And I will tell you, I think schools are still necessary because and this goes to Dr. Arshad's question, is that it's not just, you don't just need to give the content, you need to assess the content. And you need some entity that's putting it all together. And the number one thing is interaction. So if I were to teach a curriculum, I could put out the content, but I think you need regular meetups where people come to bounce ideas off of each other and share thoughts. And a school could do that. A school and a society could be the ones that help organize the curriculum, the assessment, and the interaction, because I think you need all of those. You need to be able to talk to your colleagues while you're learning. So I think that's why we still need schools, but the schools that will survive will look very different.
Yeah, but the feeding of the knowledge, you can put it on a something and you just feed it to the people. and the assessment can be by virtual interaction, like you and me are talking now, and we can learn, we can assess, we can teach, we can mentor. So,
but somebody has to do that. Like somebody still has to oversee that. Who is curating the content? Who is deciding at what pace to put the content? So I agree with you. The way it's going to happen is going to be all digital and different, but just like just like Netflix beat Blockbuster, they're still in the business of entertainment, but one did it very different. So it's going to be seen what school does it the new way, the better way.
Yeah. Ask you a question. If you're traveling, which we are limited to travel these days, on the airplane, you book a ticket online. Do you ask who is the pilot? No. But if you want surgery, you would like to ask who is the surgeon. So you go to Todd or Steve or Aiden or somebody. So how can we sort that out? Because nobody will ask who is the pilot and how many people are traveling, or they will be traveling every day, and the aeroplanes or the aviation, the critical risks is much less than we are doing as surgeons.
I want to make sure I understand your question, Manther, because are you suggesting that I want to understand, are you saying that with technology, people won't be needing to, what's your point?
With technology, people don't need to actually have a preference of things or institutions or something like that, because you try to standardize. Like if you get 1 million pediatric surgeons describing how do they do laparoscopic cholecystectomy, and you analyze that into 100 steps and feed it to a computer or robot or something, and that will actually tell you exactly what you need to do and even alert you that you are cutting something or injuring something.
Yes. So there's like 10 things you hit on there. So from a surgical perspective, by the way, I agree with you. Right now, we are in our lab using image recognition to do hazard prevention in the operating room, that the machine will guide you and say, you loaded the CAT scan ahead of time, that's the hepatic artery, it will alert you. Okay? So surgical technique will have artificial intelligence manipulated into it, and we will become more of autopilot surgeons. We are there as a preceptor to the robot, just like the pilot is to the autopilot. We're not there yet, but I anticipate there's this great conference I go to called AI Med. I invite you all to go to this. It's great. It's going to be online this year in December. Let me know. I'll send you the information. And we're getting closer with image recognition to the point where the robots will be able to do a lot of the operation with us guiding, just like the pilot. But I don't know if we're going to how long it will take to get to the point where it's like pilots, where it's so standardized that it doesn't matter who you go to. In the form of education, that may happen. That may happen sooner, because it doesn't matter what school you go to, because all the information will be standardized.
Yeah. Good. Well, I don't know. We'll look forward to that.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting.
Interesting. And I think as you said, some of it will be coming faster than we expect. Now I can talk to you, I can see you, and I'm thousands of miles away, virtually online. So and the COVID has made that possible. Before, I used to see you 2, 3 times, 4 times a year, but now we can see each other once a week or even daily. So here we are.
There's no question. COVID has turned everything on a much faster speed. But just to your thing, by the way, the Tesla is an auto-driving car that's almost safer than a human. You're just there to watch it. And if you could load a CAT scan that completely replicates the body and it can follow all the organs, there's no reason to believe it won't happen in surgery.
Absolutely. And also, even if you are driving, they will tell you if you are sleeping or not, or there is something and you have to stop. So here we are.
Yeah. Thank you, Munter.
No, thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Todd. Nice to see you. Thanks, Heidi.
Okay, Kıvılcım is like to ask a question. Go ahead, Kıvılcım.
Hello, Dr. Ponsky.
Hi.
I'm Dr. Jared from Marmara University in Istanbul. I'm really a fan of you. During this COVID period, I especially have time to watch all your videos and podcasts, listen to your podcasts. And I think it's very helpful and it's very good for our residents. And thank you for doing that for education. And I recommend StateCurrent to all our residents, to young surgeons. Thank you for doing that. I want to thank you. And also, I really liked especially the guideline parts in the StateCurrent in pediatric surgery. Could there be more guidelines, and could there be more podcasts with the experts of the important topics? Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So I think Sami Shahata is on here. I don't know if he's still here. But Sami gave me a gift, sort of. I now have a fellow working with me. His name is Rami Chabon. And
yes,
Rami,
I know.
You know Rami? Okay. Rami's going to change the world. I told Rami he was the gift from God to me, because he is going to, what he's doing with guidelines is amazing. He's made a virtual assistant that you can interact with and say what you, and it will walk you through the guidelines. He's going to really push forward all the technology because he has a PhD in medical digital education, and he's brilliant. So that's the guideline thing. We're going to do 1 million guidelines now. The problem is, how do we know what's the right guideline? Because everyone has different guidelines.
Yes.
The second thing I wanted to ask of you, so first of all, thank you for your comment about the app. We need more people to help us. This needs to be a worldwide effort. It needs to be people from all over the world participating. We've created this thing called the IDEA team, which is the International Digital Education Alliance, where people can come and create content and give ideas on what we should be doing different, and representing different regions of the world. So it's not all coming from Cincinnati. So if anyone here is interested, please contact me, because we need more people in this. Thank you for what you said.
Thank you. Thank you. What you all do for education. Thank you.
Thanks.
And I use the systems, use the figures that you have used, and I teach. I'm a teacher also. I teach your methods. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much. That's so nice. Thank you.
Jim. Thank you. There's a question from Abbas Al-Hassani. What's your expectation about the level of the pediatric surgeons under training right now in COVID era, in the term of surgical skills and safe operative standards?
Oh, this is I'm sorry. I thought someone was reading that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What do I, hold on, let me just make sure. The expectation about the level of the pediatric surgeons under training right now. Yeah. I see. It's a tough problem. I don't know what's happening there. So I make sure I understand the question. Are the trainees going to get the same level of training now with COVID? Is that what we're asking? Yeah.
I think what he's asking is most of the elective surgeries are postponed right now.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's a problem. We're trying to figure that out right now as well. We have a real problem. Our fellows in the last 6 months got very little elective experience. I think that going forward, we're not going to be able to keep putting off elective cases. So we're going to have to figure out how to do elective surgery, even during high times of COVID, because we were able to push it off for a few months, but I don't think we can push it off forever. So I think going forward, people will still get their training, but I don't know. I don't know if anyone here has a better answer to that. This is where we reintroduced the discussion of telementoring. So what we said is, some of these surgeons may go into practice now with less experience than they were supposed to have had. So maybe the training programs are now responsible for training them even after they've graduated. That 1 or 2 surgeons are responsible for mentoring them at their new hospital for their first few cases. If that's not possible and they join a group, the other surgeons need to understand that the trainees coming in are not just independent surgeons like they were before. They need probably a little more double scrubbing, 2 surgeon cases for the first year, more than we did in the past. These are all the things that we've been discussing, but I don't know how it's going to pan out.
Okay. There is a question from Collins Oduma. Yes, Collins.
So, hello,
Yeah.
thank you. Yes, thank you. I want to find out, thank you for the lectures. I just want to find out your experience concerning training medical students, especially the clinical aspect of training for now. Because part of the challenge we're having is that we'll do the online lectures. By the way, I'm a lecturer at Babcock University from Nigeria. So we'll do the online lectures. However, the clinical aspect of the training is a challenge. More so for students in anatomy that may need to go to the anatomy room for their dissections. How do we marry this together with the realities of time? Thank you.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think everything has to change, and we're lucky in some sense that we have the technology that we do during COVID right now, because we can be creative. Right now, adversity leads to opportunity. And when bad things happen, it forces us to be more innovative than we were before. Teaching anatomy, I'm going to try to pull up a video to show you an incredible lecture of how someone taught anatomy virtually. He actually was walking inside the body using a green screen, pointing and showing the anatomy. And it was much better than the anatomy I had done with the cadaver, because he was pointing and literally walking through an image of the body and pointing it. So you can be creative. And I think, Collins, you'll find that we will be better at teaching because we're going to be forced to be more creative in how we teach.
Okay. Another question from Igwe Arua Obasi. Yes, Arua. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Ponsky. Actually want to thank you so much for the lecture, and you're actually a mentor of mine. You mentored me on the laparoscopic repair of inguinal hernia, which using the spinal needle technique, so which I actually replicated for my project. And that was very wonderful. And I think that's a very good example of a telementoring. And I want to ask, how can we apply this technique? Because you don't even know me, and you taught me that technique. And we used it several times. And so I know that I can't really translate that to more complex procedures like thoracoscopy and all that. But how can we utilize that opportunity in mentoring fellows, other doctors like that, using videos that we publish on YouTube and all that? Thank you.
Yeah, well, first of all, please send me an email so I know you personally. Thank you for saying that. It's tponsky@gmail. I think that this is exactly relating to the last question, which is about, we're going to have to rethink how we train our fellows and trainees using some of these creative technologies. The problem is lack of standardization. So you have a lot of videos on YouTube that may not be the ones that should be the model for teaching. And so we have to come to an agreed upon curriculum, kind of what Munther was talking about, where it's an aggregation of a lot of different content that either crowdsourcing or AI determines to be the right thing to pay attention to. But I believe that you can really harness video teaching if you make it interactive, instead of just making them watch a video, but say, stop, tell me, do you understand that? Because explain, would you have a question? I want to make sure I'm understanding. And I think watching them do their first ones with you mentoring is the most critical one. They can watch it, but when they do their first one, it's great for you to be there watching virtually if you can't be there physically, and say, stop, let me show you, do this. That's going to be the future.
Wow, I really want to engage you more often in telementary, because so that you can watch me do some surgeries and say stop. Thank you so much.
I'm putting my email in here, so anyone can email me.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay, there is another question from the chat section. It's coming from Sumeye. Dr. Ponsky might have missed, if you talked about this subject, is it possible to create a virtual lab that you can do research?
Okay. So there's two things I want to answer there. Two things: virtual lab and virtual simulation. Virtual lab, absolutely. My research team, we're all virtual. None of us live in the same city. I live in Cleveland and work in Cincinnati. One of my research fellows is in California. Rami Chabon is in Utah, and Rodrigo is in Dayton, Ohio. So my lab's different, though. I have a digital virtual lab. A basic science lab, obviously you have to have a laboratory. But anyone that thinks that any job can't be done virtually, you haven't thought hard enough. Every job can be done virtually. And by the way, I'm going to go off topic. One of the big things we're meeting in the hospital now is everything with patients. We need to think more about what we can do with patients virtually. Our teams were not seeing any patients during COVID. I said, that's not okay. They said, well, we can't examine them. Well, then let's think creatively. Let's be innovative. How can we be no care? We should be stretching our brains for teaching, for research, and patient care to really think better about how you can provide care. I just made with a high school student a virtual laser, so I can control it and I can point on the patient and like describe things to them. We've just got to think creatively. Everything can be done.
Well, thank you very much, Todd. I think everybody is going to think differently from now on about medical education. We learned a lot. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time, for your efforts. Hope to see you in Healthy Days in person.
I agree. Thank you so much. This was so much fun. It's good to see all my friends there.
Okay, everybody has a good
night.
evening. Good night. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.